Hey everybody, happy Friday. It is our book day of the 5 love languages. I'm Jay, this is Christa with Say I Do Forever. We've got our coffees. Actually, I'm just about finished mine. But here we go.
Here we go. We are on chapter 5,
Yep.
is it? Chapter 5 of the 5 love languages. And we are looking at the second of the love languages, quality time.
Yep.
A little quick review. Last week we dived into our first love language. And I'm wondering if any of you guys got anything out of that. Did you make your week better if your spouse has the love language of words of affirmation? And even if they don't, did you concentrate a little bit more on how you spoke to your spouse? Stuff like that. I didn't realize too, when we were studying the book in the last one, and if you want to look at words of affirmation, go back to our last video last week. We'll probably link it down in the description. But also at the end of the chapter, you will see they actually have kind of almost like homework. So if your spouse's love language is words of affirmation, it has 8 different things you can do, which I thought were really good. And the first one is to actually remind yourself all week long that words are important. And I think that's regardless of if your spouse has that as a primary love language.
Yeah.
Words are important no matter what their love language is. It's just they're going to feel love a little bit different if that's their love language. So go through that. Go at the back of each of the chapters and maybe go through that. And we'll look at some of those for today's, but then we turn the page to chapter 5, and we are on quality time,
our favorite,
which ironically is Jay and I's surprise new love language this year.
Yep.
That quality time is probably the most important thing for us right now.
Yep.
And they kind of review in here. Gary Chapman reviews a story that was in last week's chapter about Andrea and Mark. And they were kind of at the end of their marriage, and they came into his practice. He's a counselor, and they were pretty much done with marriage. And what ended up happening is he gave them homework to write down the things that they appreciated about each other, and then to speak those into the marriage. And at the end of the last chapter, it talked about how Mark at the end was like, wow, this really changed my life. I really am feeling more in love with her, and I just feel loved. And then when he spoke to Andrea, she says, well, yeah, it's nice, but I still don't feel loved. And he realizes at the end of the last chapter that Mark's love language was affirmation, but Andrea's had a different love language, and that's where it brings us to this quality time. So he kind of picks up with that at the beginning, and he talks about Mark and Andrea and how she's still not feeling loved, and Mark is actually realizing that she still doesn't feel loved, but he's feeling loved because she is telling him how much she appreciates the different things he does for her. And so hers ends up to be quality time because he said, listen to the complaints. The complaints are that she's saying, you know, we don't do anything together anymore. We used to do so many things together. We used to do this when we were dating, and now that we're married, we're not. And Mark is building he's kind of climbing the corporate ladder.
He's kind of a workaholic, actually.
Yeah, but that's important to him. And it's not, he specifies that it's not that she really hates his job. It's that she feels little love coming from him. Like she's not feeling that he's spending any time with her. And of course the culprit would be his job. So she's automatically going to hate his job. Not because she really hates him working. I'm sure she appreciates him putting all that effort into bringing home money and taking care of the family. But to her, she's not feeling loved because he's not spending the time with her. He's looking at his job first and her second.
It's kind of like a story I remember when I was a little kid,
Oh.
where Jay and Norma didn't feel loved because a certain someone was spending all their time working.
Would that be your dad?
Yeah. So, I mean, when you put your career ahead of your family, the family suffers. And if you don't fix things, it ends up destroying the marriage. And that's exactly what happened. That was one of many things. But that gave me a direction to not go and have become so obsessed with my job that I left my wife and my kids in the dust, and that's what I didn't want to do. So just right along with this couple, I can relate to how she's feeling.
Did you notice too, Gary Chapman, he talks to Mark and he asks him, he's asking about his job, and he says, I've worked so hard, and I'm thinking about 5 years I'm going to be where I want to be. And he has a good work ethic, but he says, do you want to get to that point in 5 years without your wife and kids?
Right.
Or and he says, no, I want them to enjoy it with me. I want them to be part of it. And I think sometimes we villainize the other partner. So we villainize them, saying, they're just kind of leaving us in the dust and they don't care, when actually they're thinking, I'm doing this for them. I'm trying to climb this ladder of success so we as a family can be successful, but they don't realize they're leaving the family in the dust.
I guess it depends on who the couple is, because that's how growing up my mother and I felt, is that we were left in the dust. That. But this is a different couple.
What if he would have climbed the corporate ladder and then still on evenings and weekends would have given you guys the quality time?
That probably would have been a great direction.
He could have done both and take you all with him.
Yep.
Up that corporate ladder. Yep. It's a sad scenario.
Yeah. But I mean, that just goes to show you that happens.
And I can see both sides, because I could be the wife at home. Like, I remember summers were always hard because you worked for Pepsi and you did all of the fairs.
The special events,
and sometimes you were there till 1 o'clock in the morning. I mean, all day trying to run the fairs, especially in the summer. And I was a little bit of a widow. So I could see that side of it, how, the jobs can just take over and you feel kind of left in the dust or lonely and wish that you had time with your spouse. And then as a business owner, where it took me every bit of spare energy to build the business and to keep customers happy and try to take care of employees. And then you feel like you have nothing left to give when you come home.
Right.
I see that side too.
Right.
I think we have to, and that's why communication in a marriage is so good, because one person, it's not necessarily one person's the villain and one person's the victim. I think on both ends, there's a lot of times that marriages fall apart and that other spouse just didn't know any better. They were trying their best and they didn't know any better.
Right.
So there's some workaholics that aren't realizing that what they're doing is destroying their home.
There's some workaholics that are working hard, not realizing what they're doing to their marriage. And then there's other workaholics that are working hard.
And they don't care.
And that they're working extra because they don't want to be at home.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and when it gets to the second one, when that's the case, then you need to get counseling, or you need to figure it out real quick how to fix it with your wife so you want to be home and not be always at work, because it's not happy land at home. So
I guess you have to decide, what do you want? Do you want a strong marriage and family with a good job, or do you want to have just the good job and don't care about the family? I don't know. You have to sort through that.
It's definitely everybody's road to walk, and they need to figure it out, or they end up to be a statistic. So
yeah, well, and
which
it doesn't necessarily even have to be workaholic. I think the longer you're married, you start to take things for granted too.
Yeah, you get in that doldrum.
Yeah, this was a really funny on page 56. He actually says something really funny. He says, have you ever noticed that in a restaurant, you can almost always tell the difference between a dating couple and a married couple? The dating couple looks at each other and talks. Married couples sit there and gaze around the restaurant. I thought that was funny.
That is funny.
Because like when you're like dating, you're like, so tell me more about, what was your childhood like, or what did you do, or what do you want to do when you, grow up, or when you like
where do you want to be in 5 years, or tell me your whole road, your whole path, what do you want to do? And
then when you're married for couple. A long time, you sit there like
you're like oh yeah,
oh, this restaurant's really pretty.
Oh, look, they just made more free bread. Okay.
I've been there where we've been there, and like it's like, okay, we're definitely not going to talk about the kids. Let's just talk about ourselves. And then we get to the restaurant and we realize
all we have is to talk about the kids, and it's crickets.
Maybe you need to come up with some new hobbies or something,
Yep.
If you're at that point in your marriage.
Yep.
I thought that was funny.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I think it's really, really sad for the really good part is Mark and Andrea. I think that's their names. He follows them through all the way to empty nesters, and they actually are a happily married couple afterwards because they worked on those things. So there is possibilities of actually getting through to the other side. So what Mark did is he realized that all of her complaints were that you don't spend time with them. So Gary Chapman actually asked him to make a list of all the things that she keeps saying. We never go to picnics. We don't go, what does she like? The orchestra or something like that?
Yeah, the symphony.
The symphony?
Like going to the symphony with her, he said, I could tell the lights were coming on in Little Rock.
Yeah. So there's a list on page 58 and 59 of all the things that he heard her say that they needed to do. And so he started to make an effort to actually do at least one of those. Was it one a week or one a month? I don't know.
I'm looking for it. I can't remember.
But putting those things into action and maybe taking time, and maybe you can still climb that ladder of success, and yet on the weekends or,
what's the old saying? It's cliche again, but you have to have balance.
Balance is key.
Yeah. You have to have a balance.
Yeah. They talk about focused attention and quality conversations on page 60. This is where we're introduced to Patrick, and he's married for 17 years and his wife left him. And he says something like, I have been a fool, a real fool. And Gary Chapman says, what has led you to this conclusion? I've been married for 17 years and my wife has left me. Now I realize what a fool I've been. And he actually talks about how his wife comes home from work every day and she tells him about her frustrating day. And he tries to fix it, and he tells her a solution. Well, you need to go to work, and you need to talk to the people in charge, and blah, 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 blah.
It's because we know that we need to fix it.
Yeah. So many men do this.
You don't need to fix it. You need to just shutty and listen.
Yeah, so then the next day, she says the same thing. He says, well, did you go to such and such and fix it? No. He comes to find out after she's left him, and he realizes that all she wanted was
a listening ear.
Imagine that. Ear and to talk.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
Just to listen.
And not fix it.
Yep. And you know what she would have said too, if he would have sat there and listened and not like fixed it, but just listened. This is exactly what she would have said. I'm just saying, this is my opinion, but I think she would have said, he's such a good listener. I'm so happy to be married to him because he knows exactly what to say and how to fix it. Well, how he fixes it is just to listen. Men, you got to listen. I'm just saying.
And it feels like doing nothing, huh? Does it feel like you're not
you
doing
just like
anything?
sit there. You know, and not stare like a deer in the headlights look like, you know, but just like literally, legitimately listen.
Women,
it's
sometimes
not hard.
I think like,
it's not
I don't
hard.
know, all women aren't the same and all men aren't the same, but a majority of women like to talk through something, and they can even solve their own problems.
They work it out themselves.
If they can just, because it floats in here 100 miles an hour, and when you talk it out, we can organize it a little bit, or at least get somebody else to feel it with us. We want you to feel. Do you feel it?
You know what I'm feeling? Got them feelings.
Do you feel what I'm saying?
I feel it.
Why do you think women go to the bathroom in groups?
To talk and listen.
Because we'll chat all the way to the bathroom. We'll chat while we're going to the bathroom.
Yeah.
We'll chat while we're standing at the mirror washing our hands.
At least now we know why men don't go as a group to the bathroom. That's not going to happen.
Just gonna chat.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
Let's all go to the bathroom together. And it's not because the women are helping us solve the problems.
No, because they're listening.
They're listening.
Exactly.
We just need somebody to listen.
Exactly.
And on 63, it actually talks about the steps on what it means to listen. Like you maintain eye contact with your spouse.
Yeah, he says, we forget that marriage is a relationship, not a project to be completed or a problem to solve. Being that marriage is a relationship, also, I remember of what he said is marriage is also a marathon. It's not a sprint, you know, and it's not something that you check boxes. Oh, I'm 25, I'm going to be married and have 4 kids. When I'm 28, I'm going to have the, you know, the diploma. When I'm 35, you know, I'm going to be here. When I'm 40, I'm going to be here. So it's good to have a game plan, but your marriage is not a checklist. You can't have a marriage like that, because that's not a marriage. You know, I don't know how else to put it. It's just not a marriage. Marriage is not a checklist. Marriage is a relationship.
A relationship.
Exactly.
It's
exactly
getting to know each other. It's hearing each other. It's feeling each other's feels.
Yeah. Feelings, them feelings, like Dave Ramsey says, his wife always says. But another thing that he says is we must be willing to give advice, but only when it is requested. Early on in our marriage, like I had just said, is I was always like, well, this is what you should do. I got it all figured out. This is what you should tell somebody, or this is how you should deal with it. That's not what she wanted. She wanted me to listen. Yeah. And when I listened, it was much better.
And that's probably why we started dating right after that first date, is because you just sat and listened, and then I sat and listened to you, and we closed down Pizza Hut.
Yep.
And, you know, that's how our relationship was born.
Yeah.
It was out of, for the first time, we kind of heard each other, listened, you know, where other guys didn't do that. So
no, they could care less. They're watching their watch. They're well, back then the day you didn't have phones to stare at. They're just like looking around.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
The other thing he said in here is make eye contact when your spouse is talking. That keeps your mind from wandering, communicates that he/she has your full attention.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of a respect thing, you know. If you're talking to a stranger, I guarantee you'd be looking at the stranger when they're trying to tell you something.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, I mean, there's some people that don't even care. They don't give a rip about anybody. But if you're one of those people that show respect to other people, I guarantee you're going to look them in the eye. Well, same with your spouse. You need to look at them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, not weird, but just
Mm-hmm.
eye contact.
Yeah.
You know, I like that he put that down.
Well, and it goes with the number 2. Don't listen to your spouse and doing something else at the same time.
Yeah.
It's giving undivided attention.
Yep.
And if you cannot turn from what you're doing immediately, you can say, I know you are trying to talk to me and I'm interested, but I want you to give me, or I want to give you my full attention. I can't do that right now, but if you will give me 10 minutes to finish this, I'll sit down and listen to you.
Yep.
I probably do not do this well because I'm always multitasking and trying to do 100 things and on to the next thing. So I need to improve on that.
Yeah, well,
yeah.
You're a busy woman, so I'm okay.
Number 3 is listen for feelings and ask yourself, what emotion is my spouse experiencing? There's always something underlying what they're telling you. If they're telling you a horrible thing from work, they're probably frustrated, hurt. Look for those feelings and then reflective listen that back to them. It sounds to me like you were feeling disappointed because, and you can say why. And then that gives them the opportunity to say, yes, that's exactly how I'm feeling. Or no, I'm not really feeling that. What I am feeling is... and then observe body language. He was talking about how sometimes the words that they're saying don't match the body language. So maybe they have clenched fists or trembling hands or tears or furrowed brows or eye movement.
Well, and y'all probably remember, you know, so many times you've heard, well, when people have body language like this, like their arms are crossed, like they're standoffish or they don't care about what you're saying and they just want you to hurry up and get done because they have other better things to do. So same with your spouse. I mean, if you're closed off to your spouse and you're standing there listening to them like this, they're going to be like, he's just shut down.
I tend to do that because I'm cold, though. I'm always like, oh, I look like I'm mad. And I'm like,
well,
no,
from now on, I'll
cold.
get you a sweater and then we'll see if you take your sweater and go like this.
But I was actually listening to another YouTube channel about body language and talking about if you look to where they're looking, and I'm going to probably quote it wrong, but if you ask them a question and I think they look to the side, it's like they heard it from something, and if they look up or different ways, it's like they're in their brain processing where that information's coming from.
Mm-hmm.
And then if they're looking more down, they're pulling it from their feelings. So our brains almost, have a filing system that are kind of like that. So if you say to your child, how was your day at school? And if they kind of are hesitant and look to the side, to their ear, it might be that somebody said something to them that hurt their feelings. So you got to probe a little bit more. Or if they just kind of are looking up, they're just kind of going through their memories or what they read or something like that. And if they look down and kind of pull up like, it was okay, they may have hurt feelings.
With me, I look all over the place, so especially after having a coffee.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't tried and true, but kind of learning to, I think when you also have known your spouse so long, you start to know their little quirks. Jay has a little lip thing that when he's talking to people and he's telling them everything's good and everything's fine, and his lip does this certain thing, I can't even do it, I know that he's not happy and he's pretty frustrated at the moment, but he's trying to pull it off as everything's good. But I think that comes with time.
Now our friends are going to be watching for that, right?
I can't even explain it.
Well, that's good.
I can't even explain it.
So then we don't have to worry about that then.
Yeah, he does a funny lip thing, but I'm sure I do some things. You said to me before when I was just like, no, I've had a really good day, and you're like, I know you too well.
Yeah, I see right through you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know you didn't have a really good day. Now let's talk.
Now let's really talk.
Yeah.
So I think love and loving your spouse is getting to know those little quirks, and that just takes time. It just takes years of you kind of have watched them and observed them all these years.
Yeah. I like what he says down here. Self-revelation does not come easy for some of us. We may have grown up in our homes where the expression of thoughts and feelings was not encouraged but squelched. To request a toy was to receive a lecture on the sad state of family finances. The child went away feeling guilty for having the desire, and he quickly learned not to express his desires. When he expressed anger, the parents responded with harsh and condemning words.
That's sad.
I remember couples that Christa and I have known that are like this, like whether it's the husband or the wife, they suppress their feelings. They don't want to talk about their feelings. They don't want to deal with their feelings. And all that does is create a lot of frustration for the husband and wife, husband or wife, because they want to bond intimately on their emotions, and the husband or the wife doesn't want to go there because they were raised this way where, you can't cry, you got to be tough, blah, blah, blah. And it's not healthy. I mean, then you've got this couple that should be having a great marriage, and they don't because they're so divided because he or she isn't willing to just open up a little bit, you gotta give them something, and it's sad to watch because it's not going down a good path,
Would that be like on page 67? He talks about, which I thought was a little bit funny, but it's not funny if it's you. The Dead Seas and the Babbling Brooks. So he talks about, I think he's talking about like a husband. It could be a husband or a wife that is the Dead Seas, where they have a huge reservoir for feelings and emotions that everything just kind of goes into, but they don't let it. They don't have an outlet. They don't have an outlet to let it out.
Yeah.
So when they're going through things in their daily life, like a driver cuts them off, or it's talked about the gas. You're getting gas in your car and it overflows, goes all over, and no matter who you are, you feel some emotions. You're going to feel angry, frustration, or if somebody says something to you that hurts your feelings. No matter what, if you're going through a day, and you're gonna either store those, and it's talking about the Dead Seas are have this huge reservoir, and they just keep putting the stuff in, but they don't share that with anybody. They're just quiet and they just pull it all in. My family, I always think of, we always just say, well, we're deep thinkers, and I think that's a Dead Sea quality because, or we're just people watchers. So a lot of people in my family, especially on my dad's side, are quiet and they just sit back and watch the world around them, but they don't interact or say much. They just are taking it all in, and they're very smart when they actually open up their mouths. Really great stuff comes out. You just never hear them talk it very much. So the Dead Seas, they just kind of let it all in this huge reservoir. And then the Babbling Brook, That is one that has no reservoir. Everything that comes in goes right back out. So they're talking 100 miles an hour. Oh my goodness, that just made me feel angry. Oh my goodness, that is that was frustration. They just like if they feel it, it comes out.
A friend of ours calls those people a chatty Cathy.
Cathy.
Babbling Brook is a chatty Cathy.
Yeah.
Lots to say.
So now we can call him a babbling brook.
Yeah, exactly.
But they said how most of the time Dead Seas will marry a babbling brook, because when they are first together, the Dead Sea is sitting there on the first date or second date, third date, and the babbling brook is just talking up a storm, and the Dead Sea person is going, oh, this is nice. I don't have to talk or do anything. They can do all the talking. And it says that they're like, what a wonderful person he or she is. And then the babbling brook, they're just talking about this and that. And, oh, did you see that waiter? And blah, blah, blah. And, oh my goodness, I just slammed the car door on my finger and whatever. And then that person, the Dead Sea walks away going, wow, that's just a wonderful person, because they're doing all the talking, where the babbling brook loves the Dead Sea person because they get to do all the talking, and they think, well, they're just a great listener. As I just babbled.
No, you're good. You're good.
But
I was just, while you were just talking, I was thinking about the babbling brook probably would turn to the Dead Sea spouse and say something like, well, I want to know what it tastes like to you, from that movie.
Oh,
Do you remember that saying?
Mm-hmm.
It's like trying to draw them into a conversation, or to get them to be on more of the emotion side of things. Well, what is it like to you?
Yeah.
To pose that question, like to draw it out of them, and they still.
Well, what ends up happening is they're all happy at the beginning because each of them's kind of filling that need.
Yeah.
But after a while, the babbling brook is like, he never speaks. He never tells me his feelings. Yeah. And the Dead Sea is looking at the babbling brook going, she's always talking. She never shuts up. I have to listen to everything, and all it is that the babbling brook really wants to hear the emotions and wants to hear from the Dead Sea person.
Yep.
But he said there is good news, that they can all become, like the person who's all cut off can practice and can become someone who talks about his feelings to his spouse.
So there is hope.
And vice versa.
There is hope.
The babbling brook can shut up.
Yeah, and the Dead Sea can go to more of a babbling brook.
Yeah.
There's hope. There's a chance.
You guys have to read the chapter.
Yeah.
It was really funny and good.
Yeah, it is a funny, good chapter. And then we go on to quality activities, which is my favorite, because my wife does things with me that she knows that brings me happiness, and one of them is tennis, and the one that brings her the happiness is gardening, and the one that brings both of us happiness together is landscaping. Mm-hmm. So we have those three things that we really enjoy doing together.
Yeah. It talked about, finding some quality.
The quality time.
Time together. Even if you spend a lot of time, there's quality time, and then there's just spending time together.
Right.
And you need quality.
Yeah. He was like, well, you're not going to sit and watch TV and just ignore each other and just sit there. Well, even though her and I are good with that, that's not really quality time together. That's spending time together, but that's not quality time together. Mm-hmm. We can both stare at the TV, but we're not accomplishing anything other than just being next to each other. Mm-hmm. Which we're good with, but a lot of couples, they need more than just sitting here. They need to go do something together.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it asked a really good question, and I'm still thinking about this question. I don't know if I have an answer, but it asked this question, ask your spouse and ask yourself, fill in the blanks. I feel most loved by my husband or wife when blank. When do you feel the most loved by your spouse?
And we're not going to play the Jeopardy theme song. We're just asking the question.
Yeah. When do you feel most loved by me?
When we're either playing tennis, landscaping, or gardening.
Yeah, I like
when we're doing stuff like that together, I feel closest to you as my wife when we're doing that stuff.
I agree. I was trying
Any of those three.
I think I was trying to think too deep on this. And they're right there.
She ponders. She's a deep thinker.
Might be called a Dead Sea.
I don't think so. No.
I got both Babbling Brook and Dead Sea qualities.
You're not a Dead Sea. You're not a Dead
Babbling
Sea.
Brook?
A little bit.
Depends on the day.
Oh, this is good.
So I feel most loved by my hubby when I probably like the gardening too. I like to just be out there and moving plants and
even though the garden part of it is more your thing because I don't eat vegetables.
Yeah.
Which I don't. I think that I still enjoy helping you with your garden. Put it together each spring, watch it harvest, and all the food that you get out of it.
Yeah.
I think
it's pretty too.
Yeah. It looks beautiful. It's amazing to watch everything grow, especially this year. We did it right. We used the right soil and put it together how it's supposed to be. And man,
we got a watermelon yesterday.
And it was so good. Oh yeah, so good. So I enjoy, I guess there is some things in the garden that I like. But I like just helping you with that. Even though that's your deal, I still like helping you with that.
Well, and here's a weird thing that happened this year that we've never done before is when we started making these videos, this has been quality time.
Yeah.
We have to brainstorm together. We have to work on a common project.
Yeah.
We, it's, believe it or not, I really love this.
It's gotten us, it's got us galloping in the same direction, side by side, teamwork, team building. It's just, it's been really good.
Yeah.
Really good.
So if you want, we would love for you to put it in the comments. I feel most loved by my spouse when, tell us what that blank is, and then ask your spouse that. When do you feel most loved by me?
Yeah.
That's going to probably give you a hint to their love language too, even if you haven't given them the test yet.
Yeah.
Because if they're going to say something like, I feel most loved when you compliment me, it's probably words of affirmation.
Yeah.
If they say, I feel most loved during an activity, or when you give me a gift, I mean, that one question is probably going to answer what their love language might be.
I agree.
And then there's a question at the end. It says, what in your marriage detracts from spending quality time?
And Christa and I talked about this earlier, and we both said busyness.
Busyness is the worst.
Trying to deal with the busyness, that is a relationship killer.
Yeah.
Big time. It
just steals, I feel like we're just sometimes going through day after day after day, and it's just like it's morning, then it's night, and we go to sleep, and then it's morning, and then it's night, and then we go to sleep. And in between that, I would love to do some stuff that's a little bit more fun for us.
Yeah. Like gardening, landscaping, and tennis.
And even our garden's a little suffering lately because we haven't had the time.
Yeah.
And we did start playing tennis because you guys saw that was, our Money Mondays. We made a goal and we did get to go play tennis. And then we had 2 weeks where it was impossible because of everything going on. So this weekend we need to do that.
Yep.
And then at the end, just remember that if there's a whole list, if your spouse's love language is quality time, he actually gives you some good tips. And I think there's probably 8 of them again. Yep. 8 ways to help if your spouse, at the end of each of those, there's a thing. And once again, you can take your love language test online, just even from your phone. Just Google the 5 love languages quiz. Take the